Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Gretchen, and today I am here to talk about the 24 books that I feel like I missed out on reading in 2024. Now, this video idea is not by any means original. I'm stealing it from Jess over at Stalking Kafka. If you don't subscribe to her channel, please go check her out. She's one of my favorite booktubers, and she's always coming up with these great videos, and I love her energy and her ideas on the books that she's reading. She's just an absolute delight to watch, so please check her out if you haven't. But she recently did a video on the 24 books that she feels she missed out on, or her 2024 FOMO is what she called it. And she started this idea, she planted this seed in my head because I absolutely love the idea of naming and identifying those books that you really wanted to get to that you didn't, to kind of help me make them a priority to get to in 2025, and so that I don't forget that these were books that I wanted to read really badly. So often, and I'm sure that if you're a reader, you can relate to this, with the influx of all of these new books constantly coming out, it's very easy to get caught up in those new releases and you forget about those books that you've been meaning to get to. And I am 100% guilty of that. I'm constantly looking for the next big book that I want to read, or those anticipated releases, and then they come out and I get all excited and I read them, and then I forget about those books that I didn't have a chance to get to yet. So I figured I would put this video out into the universe to help me stay accountable and to name those 24 books I personally wanted to get to, so that I can know what those books were and kind of help incorporate them somehow into my reading plans for 2025. Now, there is one difference between my video and Jess's. Jess talked about just books from 2024 in general that she wanted to read. So these were books that she owned or had copies of. These were books that she had from the library. I am making the caveat in my video that all of these books I have to physically own. And the reason that I'm doing that is I'm actively trying to put together my goals list for my reading in 2025, and one of the big things that I need to focus on, and I'm sure many of you do as well, is reading from your physical TBR. My physical TBR right now is an absolute mess, and perhaps that's a video for another day, but I need to rein it in and I need to get it under control. And whether that's by going through the books and kind of deciding whether or not they're books I need to get rid of, or if they're books that I truly do want to read, but 2025, I need to start making a dent. So every single one of these books that I missed out on in 2024 are books that I have a physical copy of, and I am making a goal for myself to get each and every one of these read at some point in time in 2025. The other thing is I wanted to make sure that I had this list because, as you know, we're coming into a new year, and if any of you do any read-alongs or do any reading challenges, the prompts are going to start to come out very soon. As a matter of fact, Ben at Ben Reads Good, he just released his prompts for his reading challenge. It sounds like it's going to be another super fun year. I will put the link to that video below as well, and I want to look at those prompts and see if there's any books in this list that I can use for those prompts. There's also the Savage prompts that I follow. I don't believe that they have released their prompts yet, but I want to make sure that I have this list of 24 books available so that I can see if I can use any of these for those prompts as well. So that's a lot to say, but I do just want you to understand why I am identifying these 24 books, and hopefully I encourage you to do the same. It doesn't have to be 24 books if you don't read that many books, or maybe you don't have that many regrets from 2024. But if there are any books that you feel like you missed out on, think about what those books are and then maybe consider getting to them in 2025. So now that I have talked a lot already, let's get into my 24 books. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about these books. I just want to name them and kind of tell you why they're books that I feel like I missed out on and why I still want to get to them. So the first book that I want to get to is Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright. This book, if you are on BookTube and you follow the Booker Prize, or if you follow any of the content creators that do a lot of literary fiction, this was the book that everybody was talking about this year. This is the book that everybody thought should have made it onto the Booker Prize long list, and it didn't. And it's a book that I didn't get to because it didn't end up making it onto that list, but it sounds fantastic. Everybody that I have seen review this book has had pretty positive things to say about it for the most part, and it's a book that just had everybody talking, and it is definitely one that I want to prioritize and one that I don't want to go to the wayside on my TBR. Another one is My Work by Olga Ravn. This is a translated book. It's translated from the Danish by Sophia Hersey Smith and Jennifer Russell. This is a book that I primarily wanted to get to because I read The Employees by Olga Ravn this year and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to read another one of her books. Now this one actually I think came out in 2023, but it came into my life in 2024 and I want to make sure that I still get to it. Moving on to Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. This was another book that was getting a lot of buzz around Booker season. I think it came out right before the long list was announced. It's one that I think I personally had on my long list predictions, and there were a lot of people talking about it, and it was just one that once that list came out and it didn't make the cut, I just kind of put to the bottom of my TBR, but I definitely still want to read it. We have next Colored Television by Danzy Senna. This is another book that came out in the throes of all of the busy reading months that we had with the Booker, and it was one that was immediately on my radar. It sounds like a very interesting premise, and sadly it was just one that just kind of once again kept moving to the bottom as other books became available to me, and I want to make sure I do get to it soon. The next one we have is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. Now, this is an interesting read, or an interesting book in the sense that this was originally supposed to be published earlier in the year, and for some reason it got delayed and it didn't end up coming out until later. If it had come out earlier in the year, I feel like I would have had a better chance of getting to it. That didn't happen, and it came available once I already had a whole bunch of other books I needed to get to. So yeah, I am definitely still wanting to read this. I've heard that it's pretty good, so I'm gonna keep that on my list. Ooh, the next one. This is a real FOMO. I totally feel like I missed out on this one because everybody was talking about this book, and that is Clear by Karis Davies. Once again, this is that kind of Booker rabbit hole type book that I got into because I thought that this book was going to end up making it on to the long list, and it didn't. And it sounds like an amazing story. It definitely sounds like a book I would be interested in. I love books that are set on kind of lonely island kind of landscapes, and this totally fits the bill for that. And it's a short little book, so I should have no trouble getting to it. And I totally feel like I missed out because everybody else on BookTube has read this book and they've had pretty positive things to say about it. And here I sit just wishing that I could get to it sooner. So I'm probably gonna try to prioritize this one early in 2025. So hopefully I can do that. The next one I don't feel so bad about because it's a more recent release, but we have The City and Its Uncertain Walls by Haruki Murakami. This was, I think, just released in November, so I don't feel too bad about not getting to it, but it's also one of those books that if I don't keep it on my radar or right in front of me, it's slowly gonna start to slip to the bottom of my list, and I don't want that to happen. So I will very much try to get to this in 2025. So the next book, if I'm thinking correctly, this is a more recent release as well, and that is The Bishop's Villa by Sacha Naspini. This is translated from the Italian by Clarissa Botsford, and the reason that I picked this book up is I read a book by Sacha Naspini last year called Nevis, and it was one of my favorite books of 2023, and as soon as I saw that he had a new book out, I absolutely knew that I wanted to pick it up. Now, this is a pretty short book as well. It's not that big, and it is a World War II book, and I know that the market is inundated with World War II books, but what made this really stand out to me was not just the author and my previous love for his writing, but it's based on a true story. It says, based on a true story of a nefarious World War II collaboration between the Catholic Diocese of the Grosseto and the fascist authorities. And I just thought that that sounds really interesting, and it might be a different kind of take on World War II that we don't really see a whole lot in other books. So I am definitely going to prioritize this one. The next one is one I will definitely be getting to, and that is Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. This is a book that I immediately bought when I saw Morgan Talty had a new book out. He had a short story collection called Night of the Living Rez a few years ago, which was fantastic, and this is a long form novel, so I definitely wanted to pick this up. Now, how I know that I'm going to be getting to this one is this book is longlisted for the Aspen Words Book Prize, and for those of you that aren't familiar, there is a book prize that recently came on my radar that has an absolutely amazing looking long list, and I think that this is a book prize that I could really get behind and one that I could follow in the future. I actually heard about it on one of our book club meetings for Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. He has a Patreon, and we have a book club meeting, and one of the attendees, I think it was Valerie, had brought up this Aspen Words Book Prize, and Scott did a video about it as well where he talks about all of the books that were longlisted, and this is one of them. So I am planning on reading that long list. It sounds like a really great prize, not to make this video about that prize, but you have a bit of time. I don't think that the winner is announced until March, so you have a good bit of time if it's something that you're interested in. I will also link that video that Scott did so that you can familiarize yourself with that prize if you want to, but I will definitely be getting to this one. Speaking of book prizes, one of the books that I still need to get to is another translated piece. It's The House on Via Gemito. This is by Domenico Starnone, and this is translated by Ona Stransky from the Italian. And this was one of the books that was longlisted for the International Booker. I just read the short list of the International Booker this year. I tried to do the whole long list, but I had some issues with getting my hands on some of the books in time, so that didn't end up handing out. But this is still one that I want to read, and even though it didn't win, I haven't heard anybody really talk about this book at all, so I'm interested still. But yeah, I'll get to this one hopefully. The next book is another one of those books that I don't feel terrible about not getting to right away because it was just recently released, and that is Private Rights by Julia Armfield. The reason I want to get to this so bad is because this year I read Julia Armfield for the first time. I read Our Wives Under the Sea and absolutely loved it. So as soon as I knew she had a new book coming out, I knew I had to pick it up, and it will definitely be one that I prioritize. The next book, this one was actually, I didn't purchase this book. This was a book sent to me by a publisher. It's from Knopf, and it's called Don't Be a Stranger by Susan Minot. And I read the premise and it sounded really interesting to me. It's a story about a middle-aged woman that gets swept up into a love affair with a younger man that was released from prison. I think he's like 18 years younger than her. So he comes into her life and he really shakes it up, it sounds. And it sounds like a really interesting story. And yeah, it's one that I didn't mean to put off for so long, but here we are. And another reason why I desperately want to get to it is that it has a little blurb at the top by Elizabeth Strout, and I love Elizabeth Strout, so I fully trust her that I'm going to enjoy this book. This next book is also a little later release for 2024, so this is just kind of carryover, but that's Like Mother by Susan Reiger. I really haven't heard a lot about this book. It's one that sounds super interesting. It's about a mother-daughter relationship, so I love that good family saga. I love when we have multi-generational stories as well, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting to this one soon. All right, I'm moving on to another pile here. So this book, this is right up there with Clear as far as my FOMO goes. This is another book that everybody was talking about when there was Booker buzz, and I didn't get to it, and that is The Coast Road by Alan Murren. I have to get to this book soon. Everybody, once again, I feel like I'm the only one. Actually, Jess didn't get to this one either, so I feel like I'm in good company, having not gotten to it yet, but I need to. Everybody that has read this for the most part has said that this is a fantastic book, and I believe them and I trust them, and I absolutely need to get to it sooner than later. Okay, so this book is another one that had a lot of Booker buzz, and we were kind of all shocked when it didn't make it to the long list, and that is The Road to the Country by Chigozie Obioma. And yeah, I have to get to this one. There's been so much talk about this. Now, the talk about it primarily happened earlier in the year, so the buzz has kind of died down on it, but I've heard fantastic things about it, and I'm really looking forward to getting to this one. All right, so the next book, actually the next two books it looks like, were books that had a lot of buzz around them when people were making their Booker long list predictions for 2024. The first one is The Fertile Earth by Ritvika Rao, and the second is The Night Alphabet by Joelle Taylor. So I definitely need to get to both of these books. Now, The Fertile Earth just sounds like it's going to be a beautiful story. It's about female friendship. It's set in India, and I think that it has the potential to be a super emotional read, possibly one that will gut me. And then The Night Alphabet. This is one, I don't even know if this book has been released in the States yet. I actually had to order this book from the UK, so I don't know if it's been released officially here in the States. But regardless, this book sounds so fantastic. Everyone that has read it has just had absolutely stellar reviews for it. I think it's about a woman that she has a body, her body is covered in tattoos, and she goes into this parlor to get one final tattoo. That's basically just a line that connects all of her tattoos together. And I think we learn about the stories of each of the tattoos and what they mean to her and how they came to be. And it just sounds fascinating. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting to The Night Alphabet. And if it hasn't been released in the States yet, then maybe I'm actually ahead of the curve instead of behind it. I don't know. The next book, okay, so this is a strange book in the sense that this book was originally released in the UK, I think in 2021, but it didn't get released in the States until 2023, but I purchased it in 2024, so it counts. And that is The End of the World is a Cul-de-sac by Louise Kennedy. Now, the reason that I want to get to this is Louise Kennedy wrote Trespasses. That was a book that was on the list for the Women's Prize in 2023. It was one of my favorite books last year, and I just loved her as an author, and I'm really looking forward to reading her in the short story format. So hopefully I can get to that. And short story collections are great because they're books that you can dip in and out of. I don't have to commit a whole, reading day or week to finishing the book. I can read a story here, I can read a story there, and, end up finishing it with still getting the same thing out of it because of that short story form. So definitely hoping to get to this one, whether it's one I read all at once or I kind of pace myself with it throughout 2025. I will get to it. All right, we're getting down to the last few. We have Passion Tide by Monique Roffey. This is one that was actually sent to me from a publisher. It was already on my radar though. This is definitely one that I wanted to get to. It's set in, I think it's kind of like a crime story. It's set on a small island where there's a carnival, and I think someone goes missing, and it really changes the lives in that community. It sounds fantastic, and the cover, oh my gosh, the cover is stunning as well. All right, so next, if you are on my little corner of BookTube, probably everyone that you follow has read something by Hong Kong this year, and I did, but I read The Vegetarian, and I still want to get to Greek lessons. She, if you live under a literary rock, won the Nobel Prize for Literature this year, and she is a fantastic writer, and yeah, I haven't really heard a whole lot about this book. I think her most famous work is obviously The Vegetarian, but this was a book that came out, I think, in 2023. I purchased it earlier this year because, I knew she was such a prolific writer, but didn't get to it, and now I need to. Next, okay, so this is a book that was actually a 2023 release, and it's carryover that I still want to keep on my radar. This is one of those books where I fear if I don't get to it in 2025, after not getting to it in 2024, I'm never gonna get to it. So I want to, and I want to prioritize it, and that is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. Like I said, have had this on my TBR for a very long time, since it came out in 2023, and I need to get to it. The excuses are over, it's time. So this next book is one that was actually, I requested from the publisher, and they did send me a copy, and it's one that was on one of my anticipated releases video earlier in this year. I think this came out in June or July, so it's been on my TBR for at least 6 months, and I need to get to it, and that is Someone Like Us by Dana Mengescu. It sounds like a really fascinating read. It's gonna cover topics and themes of race and class and immigration, and it sounds like a very important read, and another book that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, but it does sound so interesting. I kind of want to see, you know, why more people aren't talking about it, because it does sound really good. Okay, 2 more, and we're getting there. The penultimate book is The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. This is a book that immediately was one I put on my want list because she wrote The Stationery Shop, which is a book I absolutely adore. I've heard mixed things about this book, but it still is a book that I want to get to. The Stationery Shop was such a fantastic read. It had me in my feels. I was crying over that book, so I imagine this is going to be kind of an emotional read, and that's probably why I've neglected it for a little while, because you kind of have to be in the right headspace to read her writing. But yeah, hopefully I can find the time to get to it. And then last but not least, we have a book called The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, and this is another book I think Jess had on her list as well. This book sounds like so much fun. It is a book about a woman that she goes home to her flat, and she is greeted by her husband, but she's not married. She doesn't have a husband. And then apparently she starts meeting all of these men that are supposedly her husband, and it just sounds like a really fun and entertaining book, and I hope that it is, and that I can get to it very soon. All right, so that's it. Those are my 24 books that I feel like I missed out on in 2024. They are all books, like I said, with the exception, I think, of The Covenant of Water, that came into my life in 2024, and I really want to make sure that I get to them at some point in time. Now, one of the things too that I'll mention before I end the video is I have a lot of video ideas for 2025, and I feel like I'm going to be able to incorporate a lot of these books into certain videos, so that makes me excited. I know that looking at this list and this stack of books in front of me, it feels pretty daunting, but I read a lot, and I feel like if I can just focus and prioritize these, then it shouldn't be a problem at all. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting to all of these, but I am also making sure that I keep in mind that there are going to be a whole bunch of new books that are coming out in 2025. I actually, this morning prior to filming this video, started to make my list for the video I'll do about my January upcoming or anticipated releases, and there's a lot. There's a lot that's going to be coming out, and I think that it's all about that balance. I'm not saying I'm not going to be acquiring new books or I'm not going to be reading new books, but I really do need to force myself to have that balance. I can't just read all new. I can't just read all old. There has to be somewhere in between. So thank you so much for watching. I know this is probably a longer video. I really appreciate you sticking around. If you would drop in the comments what your books are that you feel like you missed out on in 2024, I would really love to see what those are. And until we read again, bye.